What's up everybody, Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to 3GB's retrospective look at Nazi zombies. Today we are tackling the fourth map, a map called Darice, one of my personal favorites, and I know one of your favorites too. Darice was the last map released for World at War for the zombie mode, so we're going to dive in today and take a look at it. Now keep your fingers crossed because there's a lot going on in Darice that we didn't know at the time, but after doing more research and seeing more maps come out and hearing more of the storyline, there's a lot here in the map. I'm most likely not going to be able to get to all of it, but I'm going to try to touch on the things that I find interesting. So, let's go ahead and jump right on in and see what we can figure out. Darice is actually the fourth and final map in the Nazi Zombies Call of Duty game mode. It was released in 2009. It introduced us to things such as the teleporters and the pack-a-punch machine, and it brought forth certain things like the monkey bombs, which then made an appearance in almost every single map coming up after that. It is one of the greatest maps in my opinion. Another reason why I kind of like Darice though is because it brings in a whole bunch of different elements based in very obscure, very strange experiments that the Nazis were doing during World War II. And it brings in a lot of really cool kind of occult ideas and theories, and some of it based in history, some of it based in just pure fiction. There are a few that you may have noticed throughout the game, and there are a few that you may not have noticed. But let's go ahead and start off first by saying that Darice is actually based on a real project called Project Riese that was a code name for an underground Nazi weapon complex. It was started in construction in 1943 and it went to 1945 when Germany fell. It consisted of 7 different complexes all linked together. So that's kind of the first thing that's of interest, because Darice is an actual place which apparently you can visit today. I don't know if it looks exactly like it does, of course, but it does exist. Another interesting thing that we should note, now this may be a little bit of a tangent, so bear with me. Allegedly, there was an experiment that was carried out by the Third Reich in World War II at this secret German facility known as Darice, which of course in German means the giant, having to do with something called the Glocke, which is German for the bell. Now this device, this bell, was actually described as being made out of a hard, heavy metal and was approximately 9 feet wide by 12 to 15 feet high, and it was shaped very similarly to a large bell. The device supposedly contained 2 separate counter-rotating cylinders that were each filled with a mercury-like substance that was violet in color, that would emit very strong radiation when it was activated, and this supposedly led to the death of several unnamed scientists, plants, animals, test subjects, who knows whatever else they might have tested this on, if it actually existed. This brings us to the henge, or the fly trap. If you go to the M1 carbine area, and you go all the way to the chain link fence, and you look out between the 2 buildings towards the very end of what you can see, you might notice a ring of concrete supported by pillars. Now this ring of concrete is supposed to mimic the test rig for this experimental device called the Glocke. Now if you shoot it with a packed gun, you'll actually trigger an Easter egg where you have to go on a little Easter egg hunt and you find these different objects spread across the map. It doesn't do anything except for give you the trophy for shooting it, but it's interesting to note that they included the henge in the background. And since the henge was supposedly an anchor for testing of this the Glocke, it makes it for a very interesting tie into actual reality. Now the bell may have been some sort of device for experimenting in anti-gravity propulsion, which is usually what people consider. Now some people would say that the structure is just simply a conventional cooling tower, but that's okay, because it's still interesting to think about. Treyarch pulled from these different ideas and created their storyline using these tidbits. Now if the bell actually existed, regardless of what it was designed to do or why it was tested, in Treyarch's story, the bell is actually used as the teleporters, which is why each of the teleporters are very bell-like. If you look up on Google and you type in the Glocke, World War II or something like that, you will get images of what the bell was supposed to look like. And they very closely resemble the teleporters from Darice. So that actually is really cool, and I find that to be very, very interesting. In Darice, we also start hearing about Element 115. Also the DG2, which we found in Shinonuma. It's kind of assumed that it was produced here at Darice, and that it uses Element 115 as some sort of catalyst, some sort of powerhouse. So not only does 115 transport you from point to point, and then eventually through time, as we'll see later on when we go into Kino, but it also is a power source that can be used as a weapon, and it turns people into zombies. So this 115 stuff is not a very good element, really. You don't really want to mess with this stuff. But in Darice, we come up with a very interesting idea of what exactly is going on here. Darice gives us the idea that the German military, the Wehrmacht, decided that it was not going to win the war, and they needed to find something that was going to go ahead and give them the leg up. They try to weaponize this element 115. Now where it came from, well, there's different stories about that. If we look at Origins, the new map pack, we'll see that it was actually excavated out of the ground. If we look just at what we had in Shinonuma, it looks like it comes from a meteor. Who knows? But the fact is that 115 has unforeseen side effects, turning people into zombies, causing people to go insane, and eventually leading to the destruction of the world. Which of course doesn't come up till much later down the storyline. But it all starts here in Darice. In Darice, we are introduced to Dr. Maxis. We are also reintroduced to Richtofen, Takio, Dempsey, and Nikolai. We also start hearing a little girl's voice, which we now know as Samantha. And Samantha, apparently, is Dr. Maxis' child, his daughter. You can hear her voice when the bear moves the box. You can hear her voice then. You can also hear the voices in different areas in the map. You can listen to different radios that are strewn out throughout the area that will give you bits and pieces of the history before everything goes to crap, before 115 destroys everything. And she actually becomes a very pivotal character the farther you get into the zombie storyline, up until Origins, when she is pretty much the main reason why you're doing what you're doing. So let's talk weapons. You don't have any new guns or anything like that. You have your basic weapons that you've always had through all the Call of Duty zombie maps before you. Things like the Kar 98, the M1A1 carbine, the M1 Grand. You have the ray gun, the DG2, the MG42, the Springfield 30 caliber deployable, the BAR, MP40, Stug 44, Gruber 43, trench gun, Thompson, PPSH, FG42. It goes on and on and on. Luckily for us, a couple of those weapons are available on the wall, like the FG42. I personally have always loved the FG42, even though it was a very obscure weapon that was not used a lot in World War II. It is one of the more interesting factual weapons used in the game. The big improvement here, in terms of weapons, is the ability to take your weapon and to put it in a machine called a pack-a-punch machine. And that will actually upgrade your gun, giving you more ammo, higher rate of fire, giving you better damage, and altering the look of your gun. And that really comes in handy later on in the rounds. You also have something new called the monkey bombs. Those of you who have used the monkey bomb before know that it actually acts as a homing beacon, and all the zombies in the area run towards the monkey bomb. Once they're around it, the monkey bomb explodes, usually kills most of the zombies. If it doesn't kill them, it takes off their legs and makes them crawlers. In the much later round, becomes less effective for actually killing, and more just to pull zombies off of you to give yourself a little chance to cool down, reload, reposition yourself. So let's talk strategies. What's the strategy that you want to use under Reese to get you into the higher rounds? Well, there's a couple different strategies that we used to use. One of which is hold out in the hallway by the M1A1 carbine. One guy on the window, 3 guys facing down the hallway. Keep the door both to your right and your left closed. That was a fun area. It gets really hectic though. Another strategy is to hold out in the Thompson room. You keep the staircase behind you closed. You have one guy on the far right window, one guy on the left window, two guys watching the front. If you ever get overrun, the guy runs up, pulls the electrical switch, killing most of the zombies and at least giving your crew a chance to turn around, revive whoever's down, or buy ammo off the wall and reload. That's really my favorite tactic. And the last strategy that is very popular is actually the catwalk strategy. And that is to have one guy watching the window, two guys watching the staircase, and the fourth guy having some sort of a grenade-type weapon, shooting the bottom of the stairs to help take off legs or take off limbs and to slow the zombies down. By the time they get in front of you, they're usually dead. But it can get pretty hectic really fast up there, and there's nowhere to run. If you get swamped, there's no way out, unless you have monkeys or something like that, and I've seen it go bad hundreds of times, and every time it ends poorly. And it is one of the more popular strategies out there on the net. If all of that fails, if every area is overrun and you have nothing else to do, everybody goes from teleporter to teleporter to teleporter. Hit the teleporter, go to the mainframe. Hold out for like 10 seconds, and then run to the nearest teleporter the opposite direction from which you came. Hit each teleporter, because there's nowhere in the map, like there was in Shino, where you can run a big loop. You can train and kite a bunch of zombies. There's a lot of hard corners, there's a lot of things you can get stuck on, so it's not the best idea to try to run laps. It just doesn't work that well in Darice. But using the teleporters, you can actually survive into the fairly high rounds just by teleporting. Killing a few zombies, buying ammo off the wall, teleporting again. You can make it pretty far with this strategy. You may recall from Shino Numa, we mentioned perks: Juggernog, Speed Cola, Double Tap, and Quick Revive. These 4 perks make a reappearance in Darice, and they really do help. That's not the only enhancement. The biggest thing about Darice is the addition of the Pack-a-Punch machine. And I mentioned it before. The Pack-a-Punch machine gives you a whole new take on a weapon that you may have never used before. For example, if you take the M1A1 carbine, you can use it for the first maybe 7 or 8 rounds, and then it starts becoming very weak. Doesn't really do much damage. You can then go and pack that gun. It gives you an increased ammo capacity, gives you a higher hitting bullet, a faster hitting bullet, gives you more ammo, and gives you a full automatic capabilities. So it basically turns it into a very small little powerhouse weapon. That's the whole idea behind the Pack-a-Punch machine, is to give the player better chance of survivability. Zombies is not about winning, it's about how long you can survive. And Darice gives you the Pack-a-Punch machine and the perks, Monkey Bombs and the Wonder Waffers and the Ray Gun, to help you survive as long as you can. And how you use each one of those weapons and one of those perks is up to you and your team. But they do help immensely. Of course, the Pack-a-Punch machine ends up being in almost every single map after this one as well, though it looks a little different, but the idea is still there. Now, like all Call of Duty maps, this one has its fair share of exploits and glitches. The biggest glitch, of course, is the multi-weapon glitch. Now, we didn't actually do this a lot, because again, it really ends up getting you killed more than it ends up helping. But it is nice to know that you could do it if you really needed to. There were other smaller ones. For example, there was a pillar glitch out by Teleporter C, which allowed you to basically pull up the zombies in a barrier-type glitch. But that wasn't nearly as fun. You'd have one guy watching the window by Quick Revive. You'd have another player standing right next to a certain pillar on the side of the wall. As long as he stayed right there and didn't move, the zombies would run in and would pull up in front of Teleporter C by the Bowie knife. One player would be in the bottom of the trench, could shoot out through the window, and the fourth player, he could run out and grab anything that dropped. He could grab ammo off the wall if need be. So we didn't really do that a whole lot, but it did exist, and we did try it out from time to time. This map is loaded with Easter eggs. Not only are there radios that you can listen to that give you bits and pieces of information from the storyline, there's also things hidden throughout the map, such as notes, pieces of paper,
diagrams. There's the disappearing brick you can do. There's notes scrawled into the wall. There's blood paw prints on different areas. There's containers, specimen jars, and there's all sorts of things hidden in Darice. It really gives you an idea and a feeling that something very bad was going on here, and it wasn't your average weapon facility. I'm not going to go into all the Easter eggs because there's just too many to name, but basically everything has to do with element 115, and the idea of weaponizing this element to create the Wunderwaffe, the wonder weapon, the miracle weapon that was going to take the German army to victory. Everything ties back to element 115. There's a whole list of Easter egg and trivia on Call of Duty Wiki webpage, and I suggest you go and take a look at it because there are far more than I even knew about. Darice was a great map. Darice was probably one of the best maps I could have ever asked for. It was historically based. It had a lot of weapons, armaments, powers. It's just one of the coolest maps you could ever imagine. I highly recommend checking it out, playing it. It's available on Black Ops as well. There was a map pack release for that. So either jump on World at War or jump on your Black Ops and play this map. It is fantastic. Try one of the strategies I mentioned here and it should get you at least to the mid-teens, if not to the 20s. If you're good, it might even get you to the 30s and 40s. Now this has been Gentle Ben. Next time we're going to tackle the first map that released on Black Ops, Kino der Toten, Theater of the Dead. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.